What's up, folks? Craft here once again for a movie review. Y'all know what time it is. It Chapter 2 has arrived. But before we float, guys, be sure to subscribe to I Go Hard channel and give this video a thumbs up after you watch it. So let's jump right in. Man, after 27 years, Pennywise comes back to terrorize the folks of Derry, and in particular, the infamous Losers Club, who has now grown up and spread across the nation. All but our brother from another mother, Mike Hanlon. Unlike most black folks, he decides to stay in the shit and learn the truth and history of Pennywise while all awaiting his return. Once he gets that obvious message, he calls the group to reunite and finish what they started 27 years ago. Now, from what I just explained, guys, that story is in A+. I mean, they really didn't touch any of the main base or reasoning behind the 27-year gap. I'm glad they stayed true to the story in that manner. That's just an iconic story. I mean, we've all heard of beasts and monsters coming in increments of time, whether it be hundreds of years or months. And I would say for Pennywise, the 27-year gap is very special, if that's the right word to use. Moving along to the characters, guys, I was pleased with most of the performances. James McAvoy and Bill Hader especially. James being a great leader without stealing too much of screen time over everyone else, and Bill just being himself as a comedian and a comic relief of the movie. And I feel like overall he did the Stranger Things star Finn Wolfhard justice from the first movie. It's funny when an adult has to follow a kid's performance and not vice versa, but it worked out. Although the kid version of Beverly Marsh, Bev, is more entertaining than her adult version. Man, every time Beverly ran into a room, she did the iconic female scream, if you guys notice it. It became super funny, so go back and watch it and notice how many times she runs into a room and screams. But man, Mike Hanlon, he could have been that Allstate guy. He could have been his son. So I don't know, tell me if I'm bugging out on that. Really, I would have thought Haystack, aka Ben Hansen, would have had a bigger part or would have saved the day more than he actually did in the movie. But no, he just ended up getting the girl, Bev, by the end, which was fine. You know, I know we all expected that. It was a little late, but better late than never. And you know, Eddie was Eddie. He had some funny moments, you know, typical germaphobe, like we all know, and ended up giving his life for the crew. What a guy, huh? Now, for the dancing clown, man, Pennywise. Pennywise is so iconic, it's hard to not love every chance we get to see him on screen. Whenever he appears, man, in the scene, our eyes are glued to the screen. Like, what's he gonna do? What's he gonna say? How's he gonna move? But you know, he was just a bit underwhelming. For me, anyway. He didn't wow me in this movie. He kind of just played what we expected. So nothing he did to me was lame or sucked, but nothing he did made me say what the fuck, or I wasn't shocked by anything he really did. Tell me if I'm bugging in the comments, guys. Like, I enjoyed watching him, but he didn't wow me or surprise me or throw me for a loop, you know? There was no iconic Pennywise scene in this movie that really stood out from the rest. I mean, it was hard for me to really choose my favorite scene of him in the movie. One came to mind was the maze scene, the mirror maze scene. And, you know, obviously it was just kind of funny, him banging his head on the screen over and over again. But, you know, we saw that scene in the trailers, and, you know, if we wouldn't have seen that scene in the trailers, maybe it would have hit differently. But an easiest choice for someone's favorite could have been the baseball game scene where the, you know, little girl walks up to him and, you know, he's, you know, conversating with her. But that kind of, you know, was the same as the Georgie scene. You know what I'm saying? Like, we couldn't have been super surprised by that. You know, he did bite her head instead of this time, but, you know, it cuts so fast after he takes a chunk. It's like we don't really get to see, you know, if we just saw him, you know, gnawing on her whole body and just really gruesome scene for the first time ever, that might have stood out more. But it was a quick cut, you know, just like Georgie. So actually, Georgie might have been even longer than the scene in this one. So, you know, the slashers like Jason Voorhees and Michael Myers, you know, they make us happy and smile when they appear and give us, you know, goosebumps. But for Pennywise and Freddy Krueger, they have to really wow us and surprise us and do the unthinkable. So that's what I was looking for, guys. Maybe I'm putting too much pressure on the character, but, you know, really a lot goes into it. So I'm really looking for a little bit of that extra shit, you know what I'm saying, with Pennywise. So we're talking about the solid story and the good performance by most of the characters really. Overall, the film was able to keep me hooked until the end. I mean, no doubt there, I'm not trashing the film at all. And guys, I know if you've seen the movie, you were thinking that this movie was extra long as well. I mean, horror movies are rarely this long. Usually we're used to the Avengers being this long and the DC movies, mostly just superhero movies, but this one was 2 hours and 49 minutes, guys. And it did keep me hooked, so I'll give them that. More importantly, the story really, for me as a future filmmaker, makes me want to keep writing and put together a story that honestly lives longer than 27 years. To create something that's so recognizable and at its core a masterpiece. I mean, the It story, guys, is a masterpiece. So that really did make me happy to watch this kind of iconic story of these kids facing this master evil and then growing up and doing it again. It's a masterpiece, guys. No dispute there. With that being said, some little side notes I'm not exactly happy with, guys. I must say the pace of the movie at some times got predictable. It wasn't lame or unbearable to watch, it's just predictable. Yes, I said it, guys, I'm nitpicking a little bit, but you must admit, with so many characters, time after time, they just went down the road, scene for scene, your turn, my turn, his turn, her turn. It got pretty predictable. Probably my least favorite scene I wasn't happy with, guys, is when Richie is getting chased by Paul fucking Bunyan. I mean, I don't know, guys, that scene had to cost, $100,000. It just didn't work for me being chased by Paul Bunyan. I mean, come on, man. Pennywise being out in the daytime is iconic, he had some good dialogue and, time kind of froze in that moment, but overall, the whole Paul Bunyan thing, that didn't hit for me. Finally, the climax scene, I was happy to see the ritual of Chud in full effect, and the deadlights, that whole aspect of the story was very refreshing to see. Especially when you see the flashback scene of the history of Pennywise and him shapeshifting into different beasts. This immediately made me think of the rumors and theories I've heard about, it possibly being the same entity that controlled the dog Cujo, the man-eating dog, another Stephen King movie / book, or the same being in the Overlook Hotel from The Shining. Very interesting, guys. Whenever stories are connected, possibly, it just makes everything so much more solid and authentic. So who knows, maybe one day they'll confirm that. I think it's safe to say the losers, I don't know, may possibly possess some of the same shine ability that Danny Torrance possesses in The Shining. I mean, who knows, maybe it'll be confirmed at a later time. Stephen King's world is very interesting. They didn't hit on the whole turtle, the counterpart to Pennywise, birthing the universes and then blah, 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 blah. They didn't really get into all of that, but his world nonetheless is very interesting and connected, for sure. Anyways, guys, the movie ends with the gang defeating Pennywise by believing and verbally assaulting him. They started roasting his ass, and my man couldn't take it. I mean, real quick, not the ending I would personally have written, guys, but hey, that's what we are left with. Pennywise being shriveled up into a little ball sack. Extra yuck yuck. Straight up had dude looking like a pancake. Mr. I am the eater of worlds, Galactus ass, Marvel Easter egg ass. But yeah, guys, that's my take on the overall film. I think it hit for most people. It did inspire me as a creative, if I'm keeping it real. Just a little underwhelming. I wish it topped the first remake. We always want the sequel to do better than they do. We always want the sequel to fulfill that yearning we have after the first film. That's just a given, guys. But the Pennywise story, for now, comes to an end. Actually, with that being said, the director actually mentioned there are no plans for a third film. However, he says that the It mythology has more than enough content to play around with. Take that however you want, but don't hold your breath. The first remake in 1990 didn't get made until, you guessed it, 27 years. That's all I got for you guys now. Pennywise is dead. We got our fix. We are all floating. Guys, thanks for listening. Keep it locked here at I Go Hard Podcast for all things horror and much more. But yeah, guys, until then.